Good evening, everybody. It's 6 o'clock, and we're going to get started. Thank you all for coming tonight. This is what's going to become the first annual mayor's budget hearing to discuss the city's finances and the steps we've taken toward developing a budget for fiscal year 27. As you know, recent changes in the charter have now required the mayor to hold a public hearing to discuss the budget and finances prior to the budget being submitted to the city council. And the date for submitting that budget to the city council is May 1st, which is this week. Tonight, plan to have a discussion on the city's finances and talk about the steps that we've been taking toward developing the fiscal 27 budget. That work started back in the fall and is still continuing tonight. I will not be making a final recommendation tonight on the budget because I want to hear input from everybody that's in the room as well as people on Zoom. And once we get all those comments, we'll consider everything that's been said and prepare a final budget recommendation that we'll submit to the city council this week. The process after that happens is that the council will formally receive the proposed budget. They'll forward it to the finance subcommittee of the city council. They'll review it and have questions, obviously, and take public comment. And then they'll make a recommendation to the full city council. And the full city council will do the same thing. And at some point, hopefully before July 1st, the council will vote a final budget for fiscal year 27. It may or may not look the same as the budget that I recommend, but we'll see what happens. That'll be the process we go through in the next couple of months. With me tonight is Mike Tessino, our Chief Operating Officer. On my right is Brian Turbett, our brand-new Chief Financial Officer. Brian just started on last Thursday, so welcome, Brian. I hope he comes back tomorrow. And next to Brian is Nicole Horton-Stimson, who is the city's Citizen Participation Officer. She's going to be helping with the running of the meeting tonight and with the Zoom portion of the meeting. So as I said, we're going to have we're going to make a short presentation on where we stand with the city finances, how we're preparing for the fiscal 27 budget, and then we'll open it up to your comments. The news is not great, as you may have been reading from various social media and from city council meetings, that we have a very severe financial problem this year, the year coming up, for a number of reasons, because of inflation, because of increased costs that are out of our control, like health insurance, flat revenue projected to come from the state, reduction in federal aid, and increased cost across the board. So we've been dealing with that, and I want to start with the slides. First couple of slides I want to go over are just to give you a little bit of background. We've had, in discussions with the budget, we've had different terms thrown around like cherry sheet and free cash. And so what I thought I'd do is maybe just run through what the cherry sheet means and our situation with free cash, and then we can go into some of the more detailed requests for the budget. So can we have the first slide, please, on the cherry sheet? Can everybody see that? I'm sorry. I'll try to go through this so you don't have to squint too much. But there's two parts. The cherry sheet is really the total summary of where our state aid comes from, and it's made up of two parts. By the way, I've been told that it's called the cherry sheet because back in the day, when everything was done by paper, these sheets were mailed to the various cities and towns on red paper, thus the term cherry sheet. I hope that's true because it's a great story. But anyway, there's two pieces to the cherry sheet. There's the revenue piece, and then there's the state assessments that get deducted from the revenue piece. And under the revenue piece of the cherry sheet, we have, of course, Chapter 70 aid. We have the charter school reimbursement. Then there's a term called unrestricted general government aid, veterans benefits reimbursement, pilot program for state-owned property. Pilot is payment in lieu of taxes because state properties don't pay taxes, so the state makes a partial payment in lieu of taxes to offset the cost that the city incurs for providing services to state-owned property, and also some property tax relief programs. Total state aid projected for fiscal '27 is about $108 million. Now, as I said, that includes a Chapter 70 aid. We're going to talk about that a little more later. Offsets to that, deductions, we don't get the $108 million because there's deductions. And some of the assessments that the state makes against the cherry sheet are charter school tuition, school choice tuition, special ed charges, costs for operating the city's share of the MBTA, costs for the city's share of the MWRTA, which is our regional transit, air pollution district charges, the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, MAPC, dues, and surcharges assigned to the Registry of Motor Vehicles. So the total assessments are about $9,800,000. So the difference between those two numbers is what we get on the cherry sheet each year. The other term that's been thrown around a lot is the term free cash. And people don't, it's not really free cash in the sense that it's free and it's cash, but what it really is it's made up of money that at the end of the year that's unspent from different budget items, and other receipts that come in above estimates, and other like interest income from different accounts, and other monies that otherwise haven't been spent or allocated during the fiscal year. And once we close the fiscal year, once the fiscal year ends, we compile a list of all the money that remains unspent from prior year's fiscal budget, and anticipated charges that are owed as a result of activities that occurred during that fiscal year. And all that information is sent to the State Department of Revenue. And they compile it all, and they come up with a term which is called certified free cash. And that usually happens sometime in the end of the calendar year in November or December. And that free cash becomes available for expenditures for the remainder of the fiscal year, the current fiscal year. Plus, it's also available to offset costs associated with the next fiscal year. And it's up to the city to decide how much of that free cash they want to save and reserve and how much they want to use to spend to offset costs associated with the new fiscal year. So that's free cash. So as part of the, next slide, please. Thank you. So as part of the budget preparation, we work with the schools. The schools put together their requested budget based on their perceived needs, and the administration of the mayor's office puts together the needs for the city side of the budget. And those are made up of a lot of non-discretionary costs plus discretionary costs. And in broad categories, this slide will show you the different categories for the requested amounts. And the first category is schools, obviously. The first column, we call it the requested school budget, and that's the number that the school committee had voted to recommend or request from the city for the operation of the budget to schools for fiscal '27. And that number is 190 million plus. Then there's an assessment for Keefe Tech. The original request was for 11 million. There's debt service. That's estimated to be about 19 million. There's retirement charges that are assessed by the Framingham Retirement Board to pay all the retirees. That amount is 25 million. There's a number to 9 million from the cherry sheet charges. Health group insurance, that's 52 million that's estimated for next year. And all the other city requests from each department in the city that covers personnel and operating costs is about 101 million. So the total estimated request that we started off with was about $409 million. That doesn't include water and sewer because that's handled separately as part of the enterprise fund. And that's funded entirely through fees charged on your water and sewer bills. None of the costs for the enterprise fund comes from the tax levy. So we keep that as a separate budget. So in looking at the request, and then we're looking at the revenue. I'm looking for the sheet on the revenue. The next sheet, is there any way we can share? Okay, let's go to the revenue. So the other part of putting together the budget is to estimate the revenue. And the revenue comes from a number of different sources, comes from the tax levy. And the normal tax levy under Proposition 2.5 is 2.5%. And what that really means is that we're allowed by law under Proposition 2.5 to increase the tax levy each year by a maximum of 2.5%. And I'll get to that part in a minute, how we can go above the 2.5%. The other revenue comes from estimated new growth. That means increased valuations and taxes on new developments that's taking place in the city. And obviously, state aid comes from the city. Local receipts, which is made up of different fees, hotel tax, meal tax, automobile excise tax, other fees that the city charges. And it comes also from indirect costs that come out of the enterprise fund for expenses that are charged to the enterprise fund from other activities in the city that are not part of the water and sewer billing directly. When I say that the Proposition 2.5 law limits us normally in most cities and towns to 2.5% increase, we're in a different position, rather unique position, because in past years, when the city did not use the full 2.5% to raise the tax levy, that money was or that ability to raise it 2.5% was banked and held in abeyance for future use. And we have the ability to draw on over $41 million that is available in what we call excess levy capacity. So we can go above 2.5% up to that $41 million extra levy capacity without needing to do an override like most cities have to do when they don't have any excess levy capacity. We don't like to do that. The city doesn't like to do that, but in dire financial situations, we have to consider that. So the next slide, if we can go back to, can we go back to the requested amounts? Because the total revenue that, well, let's go back to the requested amounts. Because when we calculated the amount of revenue based on just 2.5%, we were way under the amount of revenue needed to meet the requested budget. So we have a couple choices. We can reduce the requested budget by making substantial cuts. We can raise the tax assessment above 2.5%, and we can use a portion of free cash. So we have three basic choices to make, or a combination of all three to balance the budget. So we've probably, and the final recommendation is probably going to use a combination of all three possibilities. We've worked on, if we can go back to slide 5, which talks about, no, I'm sorry. Let's go back to slide 4, which talks about the requested budget. As I said, the original requested budget was $409 million. If we tweak some of the requests, including the request from the schools, we can get the budget request down to either 400 million or even 399 million. And if you see in that chart, Mayor's recommendation number 1 is a reduction in the requested amount from the schools of about $2 million, down to $188 million. And recommendation number 2 would take it $1 million less, down to $187 million. The Keefe Tech budget was revised to reduce it by about $150,000. The others stayed the same, except all other city, which is all the other city operating budgets. We've reduced that by about $5 million to reduce the request there from 101 million to 96. And that's a series of reductions from each department's request that included reduction in overtime cost, the non-funding of 14 vacant positions that won't be filled next year, reduction in requests from the police department. They won't be buying any new police cruisers in fiscal 27, and they won't be getting any additional police officers. The police department requested 7 additional police officers. The fire department requested 12 additional firefighters. None of those requests are going to be made or be funded. So if we go to the bottom line of the mayor's recommendation, 1 or 2, we're looking at a possible budget of $400,932,000 or $399,900,000. If we go to slide 6, this here deals with providing enough revenue to meet that reduced budget request. And we skip, in order to get enough revenue to even get close to meeting that budget request, We skipped over 2.5% increase in tax levy. We skipped over 3, and we went to 4% and analyzed what a 4% tax levy increase would generate in income. And we also did one for 4.5%. And as you can see on the chart, 4% tax levy would be $386 million. 4.5% would provide $387 million. And even with those increases, we would still be in a deficit position regardless of what recommendation the mayor, which one of the mayor's recommendations we followed, either one or two. The most favorable one would be with a 4.5% levy increase and the mayor's recommendation of a $399 million budget would leave us with a deficit of a little over $12 million. And the only other option available to us would be to fund that out of free cash of about $12 million. And there's a slide somewhere in here about what the availability is of free cash. Can we go to that page? I think that's page 5? 4, okay. So under free cash, as I said, the state certifies free cash every year around December for the fiscal year, and the original number of free cash was $26 million. We have some obligations to pay to supplement the current fiscal year 26, and the only way we can fill that gap is out of that existing $26 million of free cash. The first two items you can see were two appropriations out of free cash to supplement our snow and ice budget. The third one was a shortfall in our Medicaid budget, and the next one was a shortfall in our health insurance budget, and then a shortfall in our energy budget, all for the current fiscal year. So that reduced the available free cash by a little over $4 million, so remaining free cash available for use is a little over $21 million. So if we use the $12 million out of the 21 to supplement the shortfall in the projected budget for fiscal 27, that would leave us with approximately $9 million going into next year to start off with free cash for fiscal 27. So things don't look good. No matter how we spin it, we got problems. The only way to avoid the cuts that I've already mentioned would be to make further cuts to reduce the dependence on free cash, to lower the required amount of the tax levy, or print some money. And we don't have that option, so that's where we're at. And I wanted to get input from the public to see how you feel about this. And then we'll take that information and we'll make a recommendation to the city council. But the bottom line is it's not good news. We're going to have to make some serious cuts and raise taxes. And just to give you an idea what the impact would be on taxes is that on page 8, we have a chart that shows what would happen based on different scenarios of increasing the tax levy. If we raise it only 2.5%, the increase on the average tax bill would be $200, a little over $200 for the year. If we raise it to 4%, the impact would be about $322 on the average average single-family residence. And if we raise it 4.5%, The increase would be $362 on the average single-family assessment, which this year happens to be $681,000. So that is our problem. And if anybody at the table has anything to add, if we don't, I'll take comments from the public. We'll start with this room, and then we can switch back and forth between people in the room and people on Zoom. And I would ask you to keep your comments as close to 2 to 3 minutes as possible. And we'll see where that goes. Yes, this lady right here. Let's try for 3 minutes, and if we get too many, we'll have to cut it back to 2, but go ahead.
I like to go first because other people are much better than I am. Good evening. My name is Nicole Carpiez. I'm a District 5 resident, a lifelong Framingham resident, and a product of Framingham Public Schools, and a veteran FPS teacher. I chose to come back and reinvest my life, my career, and my family in this community, and I did that because I believe Framingham values education. Isn't that the goal, to raise students who love their community enough to stay, to work here, to open businesses here, and raise their own families here? This is how you build a thriving city. This is how you build a future. I understand that these are difficult financial times, and I understand that this budget is far from perfect. But I cannot understand why we are even considering further cuts to our schools, why we are looking in the wrong place for solutions, why we are not protecting the very foundation of our future. My husband and I chose to raise our children here because we believe Framingham invests in its schools. But right now, it feels like educators and families are constantly being asked to come here and again and beg for that investment to continue. We're building housing, we're creating community events, but who are they for if families no longer feel confident in our schools? I can tell you firsthand that families are questioning whether to stay. They are considering private schools. I'm part of these conversations in the pickup line. They're considering leaving in Framingham altogether. And if we cut this budget further, we are proving their fears right. You cannot invest in a community without investing in its schools. Schools create the citizens, the workforce, and the heart of the city. Our teachers are doing everything they can. They are pouring every ounce of themselves into their students, but passion alone cannot replace resources. It cannot replace supports. It cannot replace the programs that inspire curiosity, creativity, and opportunity. Any further cuts will not be abstract. They will be felt directly by students. So I ask you, we know our teachers are invested in our children. We know our families are invested in this community. Are you? Please accept this school budget as presented and stand with the future of Framingham. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Do we see somebody else over?
Do you want to go back and forth?
Okay, why don't we try that? Do we have people on Zoom that want to speak?
We do, and if you do want to speak, if you just raise your hand, and then we'll go through. I'll start with the top of my list. So first, I have Catherine Smith. I've allowed you to talk. Are you there? Oh, we can't quite hear you. If you can talk a little bit louder.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Catherine Smith, and I am speaking on behalf of the Framingham Special Education Parent Advisory Council, also known as CPAC. We urge you to fully fund the school committee's FY27 budget. With new state funding and the healthcare savings already identified, there is a responsible and achievable path forward. Further cuts will directly harm students. Additional reductions would mean fewer supports for our most vulnerable learners, including students with disabilities. They would also result in fewer staff to maintain safe, stable school environments and weakened educational programs across the district. We ask you to honor the $6.25 million commitment, increase funding to meet the school committee's full request, and work in partnership with district leadership to protect student-facing services. Budgets are moral documents. In challenging times, decisions should reflect a commitment to continuous and sustained improvement for all Framingham students, including those duly identified as special education students and English language learners. Thank you.
Thank you. I saw a hand over here. Yes.
Good evening. I'm Chris Mahoney, the president of the Framingham Teachers Association. As you finalize this year's city budget, I ask that you take a moment to reflect on what a budget truly represents. A budget is not just a financial document. It's a statement of our community's values. It tells our residents, our families, and our students what we prioritize and what we are really willing to invest in. I want to begin by recognizing how challenging this process is. You are balancing real constraints, competing needs, and difficult decisions, and that work does not go unnoticed. If we believe that strong public schools are the foundations of a thriving community, then our budget must reflect that belief. A strong school budget is not an expense, it's an investment. It supports the educators, staff, and programs that ensure every student in Framingham has access to the opportunities they deserve. I also want to acknowledge a difficult but necessary truth. Maintaining and strengthening our schools requires revenue. Thoughtful, responsible increases in taxes are not easy decisions, but they are essential if we are serious about preserving the quality of education in our city. Underfunding our schools comes at a far greater cost: larger class sizes, reduced services, and fewer opportunities for students. There is also a direct and well-established connection between strong schools and strong property values. Families choose communities like Framingham because of the quality of our public schools. When we invest in education, we are also investing in a long-term stability and attractiveness of our city. Strong schools sustain strong neighborhoods, which in turn protect and enhance property values for all residents. This is about more than numbers on a page. It's about who we are as a community and what we are willing to stand for. I urge you to adopt a budget that clearly reflects a commitment to strong public schools, even when that requires difficult decisions. Our students, our families, and our community's future depend on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next person I have here, I'm going to allow to talk. I'm sorry if I do your name incorrectly. Menakashi?
Yes, it's Meenakshi Verma Agarwal.
Thank you.
So my name is Meenakshi Verma Agarwal. I'm here representing Framingham Families for Racial Equity and Education, also known as FREE, and I'm a parent of 3 children in Framingham Public Schools and a Framingham resident for 19 years. I recently testified at the State House for the increase in funding from the state to give to communities like Framingham to support the budget crisis that we're having. And I saw across the state, from rural to urban communities, that we are not alone in this budget crisis. However, we have an opportunity to be as innovative as we claim to be when we're trying to attract people to come to the city by fully funding the school committee's budget. I can tell you it's been exhausting as a community member to keep showing up to meetings and saying the same thing over and over again to our representative leaders and feeling like our voices are not heard. And then watching programs like special ed, DEI, and ESL all being cut right in front of our faces. This is wrong, this is unjust, and we feel like it's time for the leadership to represent the people in the community. We're also losing trust in city and Framingham Public School leadership because we are having to come back over and over again and fight for the things that should just be right. This is not a question of whether it's right to fund these programs, it just should be. So please do the right thing is our humble appeal to you all who represent us to please fully fund the school committee's budget and listen to the voices of the people who do not feel like they're being heard here in Framingham. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is Dan Dubé. I live in Two Carter Drive in Framingham. I've been a resident for 26 years. I had a 2.5-minute prepared document to speak, and as funny as it is, you literally hit 80% of what I'm going to talk about. So I'm going to pivot to kind of on the fly here, because one area you didn't mention that I think we need to, as a city, start thinking about is economic development. And people don't realize all these developments that people may be opposed to generates a lot of tax revenue for the city. Now, they may not do that today, initially, immediately, but this is something that can happen down the road. So I would ask our new CFO, a task for him is to start to forecast our current projects that we have in the pipeline and future ones, and start to list out the math about what that could bring to the city and press forward on proactive, smart developments. I live in the Knobscott area. I'm okay with it. Let's get a development going there. And there's a lot of other good ones going on across the city that if you did the math, that would really help us. And then one final thought I had is, you mentioned healthcare costs. You didn't bring up, has it been investigated at all? Can employees, hate to say it, but contribute a little more to the plan? Would that help close the gap in the cost? And then finally, you mentioned 4% scenario, 4.5%. I've written emails to some of our counselors a couple months ago, and I suggested 5%, and turns out I'm not that far off. So I think that we have to probably get to that number, because if we don't, next year is going to be worse than this year. So that's my final comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody on Zoom who would like to speak? You can raise your hand. Go ahead, Mayor. I'd move to somebody in the room.
Okay. Yes.
Lower it a lot. Hi, my name is Sarah Guernsey. I'm a resident of District 2, a parent of 2 FHS alumni, a math teacher at Walsh Middle School, and the Unit A chair for the FTA. I appreciate you giving us, the community, this opportunity to share our thoughts about the FY27 budget. I have 2 points I'm going to try to make tonight, one about data-driven decision-making and one about core values. All of you, mayor, city council, school committee, you have big decisions ahead of you. I believe that when making decisions, you need to consider a wide variety of data. Remember, I'm a math teacher. Anecdotal data, stories, experiences are one useful source of data, but they need to be balanced with quantitative data. For example, in the Transparency Center of the district website, you can see the class size for every class in the district. So I've heard people say that we should eliminate high school ESL positions, since that is one place where we have experienced a decrease in enrollment. However, if you look at the class size data, there are high school ESL classes that are actually rather large. So this might not be the class to make cuts. Concrete quantitative data like this helps ensure that decisions don't disproportionately impact those who don't have their own voice in a forum like this. My second point is that we all need to decide what we want to be as a community. What is our identity? What does it mean to be the city of Framingham? We need to find the correct balance between affordability and desirability. We can have 0% taxes, but then we'll have pothole-filled roads, no community center, and I'd be teaching writing to a class of 75. Nobody wants that. At the other end, we can have gold-lined streets, a luxurious community center, and private tutoring for all students, but then no one could afford to live here. No one wants that either. So we have to find that sweet spot where we have the community we want at a price point we can afford. So now I turn to my fellow residents. In the coming weeks, it is imperative that we all communicate to the officials who are elected to represent us. Tell them where we all are in that matrix of affordability and desirability. How do we define affordability? How do we define desirability? What are you willing to pay, and what do you desire for the city of Framingham? It's really tricky to balance the two. You guys have a lot of hard work ahead of you, sorry. But the more people who share their perspective, both their story and their numbers, the better your decisions and our community will be.
Thank you. Anybody else on Zoom? Okay.
Yes, Sharon Doucette, I'm going to go ahead. Are you able to speak? I think you're muted. Sharon, are you muted?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Wonderful, thank you so much. My name is Sharon Doucette. I am a Framingham resident, also a teacher at Walsh Middle School, and a parent of a Framingham alumni. I'm calling in tonight to urge you in the strongest possible terms to support and approve the proposed budget for Framingham Public Schools. The Framingham School Committee has already reduced its budget from what our children deserve and need to thrive to what merely our students can endure. The cuts reflected in this proposal are not abstract numbers on a spreadsheet. They represent real losses that will direct and affect Framingham students across every age group, every school, and every level of learning need. At this point, there is simply no room left for further reductions without causing serious additional harm. Student-facing positions are at risk. Essential district-wide support staff are at risk. Services that allow our schools to function effectively, from teachers, custodial care, campus aides, to central office coordination and instructional support, are all part of a system that cannot sustain any additional cuts and still meet the needs of our children. I ask that the City Council look to every possible alternative before balancing this budget on the books of Framingham's youngest citizens. As residents of Framingham, I'm asking you to represent the voices of the families who rely on these schools. As a parent of a Framingham Public School graduate, I know firsthand the value this district brings to our community. And as a current Framingham teacher with more than 20 years of service to the district, I can tell you unequivocally that our schools are already being asked to do more with less every single year. There is no excess left to cut. Your attention to this matter is not only appreciated, it's expected. The students, families, educators, and residents of Framingham are counting on you, on every member of City Council and the mayor, to do what is right by your constituents, to protect the educational foundation of this city. We ask that you please approve the proposed school budget and stand with Framingham's children. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, back there.
Good evening. I'm Kimberly Manuel, and I teach ELA at Fuller Middle School. I'm here tonight to advocate for and draw attention to the whole reason I get up every morning and look forward to going to school, our students. This budget process has been brutal, it has been stressful, it has been personal, and it has been heartbreaking, both for the professional staff, for the administration, for the teachers, and most importantly, the students and their families who we serve. I am here to encourage and advocate that you, Mr. Mayor, put forth the budget that was carefully and judiciously considered and submitted by the school committee. It is the bare minimum, the minimum of what is needed for the success of our students. The school committee's budget recognizes your original proposal and requires the protection of specific specialized student-facing positions. These positions are critical and crucial to the social and emotional growth and well-being of our students. Let's be honest, none of us know what the future holds, and people can talk about budget cuts and say, the schools will be okay, the students will be okay. But how do we know that? We don't. In fact, we know from districts all over that cuts of this magnitude harm education, negatively impact students, and further negatively impact the long-term viability of our local community. As a well-trained and experienced educator, I humbly request that those of you who are elected servants of this city keep the following touchstones front and center as you make decisions. 1, what is best for our students based on what our students and community requires? 2, how do we provide our students with what they need to be successful learners? And finally, 3, don't we want the greatest quality for the future of our community? As professional educators, we know that what we do in our schools impacts future generations and the community. We know that our students are dealing with complex, ongoing traumas like immigration fears, housing and food insecurity, abuse, mental health, and safety struggles. These are children who come to our schools every day, despite the odds in their lives. They show up, they engage, and the least we can give them is our unconditional support. The school committee's budget strives to keep many of the necessary resources for those students and others in place, but does not allow for any excess or any extra. I am standing here advocating for the amazing students in our schools, for the professionals who teach, support, encourage, and love them. And we, the professional educators, and you, the elected officials, are the stewards of education and the care of children in Framingham. I believe our job is to do what's best for the students in our care, for their families, for the city, and for the future. I am standing here advocating for the students, their families, for the professional educators, and the city into the future. I ask you to support the school committee's budget and therefore recognize and honor our students, their positive development and success as an investment in Framingham's future. Can anyone really put forth the argument that our children do not deserve the best? Thank you.
Thank you.
Phone number ending in 6252. Can you please state your name?
Mr. Mayor, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Thank you very much. Too bad we have to go through this process, but it is what it is. Just relative to the presentation, I know it's a straw man and there's a lot of things are going to change as a consequence of all this, that, and the other. But in terms of what was presented tonight, I believe the GIC insurance premium increase was put back into the free cash, and I think it should be a separate area that the employees need to pay the increases on their health insurance, just like all the residents of Framingham have to do. They have to pay their own health insurance premiums. So too should the employees of the city. That'll save like $2+ million. That would reduce the excess tax levy demand. People are not going to be able to afford that, and they shouldn't have to afford that. And as a consequence, and then there was an issue relative to $1 million error in spending that was clawed back by the federal government. That should not be any impact of the tax levy increases. That should be coming out of the free cash and reduce us back down to the 2.5 to take that off the books, so it's not an issue to go anywhere over 2.5, because as you know, taxes is just one piece of the overall equation as to what is happening economically to the people of Massachusetts. Now, I don't blame you. I blame Beacon Hill, if you want to know the truth. I think Governor Healy has been spending too much time as an activist against Washington, against the White House, and it's done us no good. We should get back to the basics of cutting expenses, cutting overhead, and doing everything we need to do without taking deep cuts any further than necessary. And you all know that. And it's not going to be one of these happy days if you don't get there in the timeline necessary and the people of Framingham understand what's happening. They do know that the school department did a great job in handling their budget and made serious cuts. On the other side, I know now that you're talking about holding back full-time employee increases, but there's other areas that you need to cut more intensely, and that's debt service type projects.
Jerry, you got 15 seconds.
Whether you like it or not, that's where the money is, and that's where we have to worry about going into further and further debt. And then we have to realize that somebody has to take a projection. What's going to happen next year and the year after? We just can't do this without and be blindsided. We have to know what's going to happen to a certain degree and be able to understand it now.
Okay, thank you, Jerry. Thank you. Anybody else in the, yes, this lady.
Hi, my name is Nancy Fleisler. I live in District 4. I'm also a member of Energize Framingham. With full appreciation for how hard these decisions are, I would like to say a few words in support of adding an executive-level Chief Climate and Sustainability Officer to the budget as per the new city charter. As background, This officer was first proposed in 2024 during the charter review process. The review committee voted unanimously in favor and provided the following language. The officer, quote, "has the authority to work across departments so that policy is consistent across departments to help make sure Framingham addresses its climate needs in a thoughtful, fiscally efficient manner." We feel this position will be a net fiscal positive for Framingham, as much as it's a little awkward to be asking to add something. We think that this position will more than pay for itself. The City Council agreed on the need, voting 7-2 to add the new position to the charter. The public vote was postponed for a year because 2024 was a presidential election year, but in November 2025, citizens approved the new charter by a 3-1 margin. Now we need to fulfill the charter by adding the Chief Climate and Sustainability Officer to the budget. Hiring this officer will enable a unified, proactive approach to climate, energy, and sustainability in Framingham and ensure we are able to embrace funding and partnership opportunities and opportunities to reduce our energy costs. Many citizens support this. We introduced a petition at Earth Day, and so far we have 110 signatures, and then we ran out of room. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you.
If there's anyone online who would like to speak, please raise your hand. We can go to the next person who stood,
Did I
though.
see another hand in the back? Yes.
Hi, I'm Courtney Varga. I work at Fuller Middle School. I'm not actually a resident of Framingham, but I did want to address the fact that a big thing I am hearing is people talking about health insurance costs falling on their employees. I can understand where people are coming from, but I just want to remind the public, I don't think this is something that is public knowledge to everybody, that we do not qualify for paid family medical leave as public employees in Massachusetts. They decided to leave us out of that. All public employees of Massachusetts, which teachers are a part of, do not qualify for what every other employee in Massachusetts gets. We already have a sacrifice as being a public servant to this city, which I love being a teacher. And I take this sacrifice of not being able to have paid family medical leave when I am sick, as every other person in Framingham who works a job that isn't a public-facing position. So I just wanted to bring that up when you talk about putting the cost back on us. We are already making sacrifices as a public servants of this city. And the other thing I wanted to bring up, if people look at the data, which is readily available on the Massachusetts government website, the median increase for the tax levy, they were talking about the increase of property tax, is 4.3. So a 4.5% increase is actually not, it's not that high compared to the median across Massachusetts. I understand that that can be difficult to hear because we are in unprecedented times, and there are many squeezes to our wallets, but I just wanted to let that number be known. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That's it? Okay, yes, Amy.
Hello, I'm Amy Puelka. I live in District 1, and I also am with Energize Framingham. And I want to discuss why we need to add the Chief Climate and Sustainability Officer position while also retaining the current Sustainability Coordinator position. So in everything we've heard in this tough budget year, you might be wondering how we can afford to have both positions. And the answer is we can't afford not to. As Nancy said, these positions are going to be net positive. They will bring in more in grants than is cost in their salaries. Everyone in this room saw their energy bills jump up this year, including the city that saw $272,000 or so in extra energy costs that had to be covered. Energy costs, unfortunately, are going to continue to fluctuate and change, and the city needs to be proactive in finding energy and cost savings so that we can reinvest those savings in better things than spending it on energy. So this climate officer would work with city departments and schools to create a long-range plan to reduce energy costs through energy efficiency projects by installing solar and using battery storage to reduce our electricity demand charges. The key here is strategic planning and vision. We need that vision to qualify for large and innovative grants and to save the schools and city on energy costs every single year. So we know there's a couple large projects in Framingham's near-term future, a new community center, a new or remodeled elementary school. These are opportunities for Framingham to continue to show our leadership and bring in big grant funds. For example, we expect that the city will qualify for $1 million in new grants in the coming year from a single program called Climate Leaders. We think that we, Framingham, has the potential to bring in more grants of a similar size. We also can't lose sight of the smaller grant opportunities for Framingham because every grant dollar is a dollar less from our taxpayers. This is where the sustainability coordinator comes in. They would continue to apply for the long-term programmatic grants that keep our facilities operating efficiently. We have been a green community since 2013, another grant program, and we have only applied for funding from that program about 50% of the years that we've been eligible. Why? Because of the amount of work it requires to apply for, oversee, and report on the grant funding. So the 7 green community grants that we have received have totaled over $1.2 million, more than enough to pay 10 years of the sustainability coordinator salary and still bring in the energy cost savings from the projects themselves. So I urge the city to invest in staff and net positive staff to help all of us save energy costs that can be redirected towards better use every single year. Thank you.
Thank you. Nothing? Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Jeff Epstein, 8 Stalker Lane, former school committee member and failed mayoral candidate. Way to go, Charlie. I am really disappointed with a number of things, and there are structural things, the whole way the budget is formed and deployed to us. I heard a lot of numbers. I heard no narrative. I don't know what the goals are of the budget. I don't see a strategic plan. So we have some structural problems that need to be fixed. But I'd like to talk about 2 things immediately and come back to the structural things. In the schools, the school committee budget that was voted by the school committee is totally unsatisfactory. It's like a capitulation to a fiscal demand from the city side. And the reason why it is so unsatisfactory is there are 4 major landmines in that budget. First of all, student performance has been going down for 4 years. 3rd grade reading proficiency is downtrending, which is a very serious problem. We have 40% of kids in the 3rd grade who are not proficient readers now compared to 20% 4 years ago. We have experienced teachers leaving the school system. In fact, the budget depends on them leaving because every time an experienced teacher leaves the school system, we save $40,000 because they're making about $90 and you bring in a younger, less expensive school teacher. And if you look at it's called turnover savings when that happens. This current budget depends on $4 million in turnover savings beyond what was normal. It's actually at $6 million. It used to be $2 million, which is the normal amount you get from retirees, but we're $4 million up on that. So we're shedding experienced teachers, and that has to end. At some point, we'll have no experienced teachers in the school system. So there's a $4 million landmine in the school budget, which is this turnover savings. There further is another $2 million landmine, which is there's no special needs reserve anymore. We used to, when I was on the school committee, have $2 million. So if you had sudden move-ins during the school year, you had a reserve to deal with them. So you got a $2 million problem there, which needs to be remedied. So there's $6 million of missing money, quite apart from the failing student performance and the experienced teachers leaving. That's a big problem. So what's the goal in this city? I've been here since 2014, and the big goal in the city that I saw was low taxes. I didn't hear education. Now we're starting to hear education. One of the reasons why I like to talk at the end is everybody got up and gave really good reasons why the education system matters. So
Mr.
what's
Epstein, you have 15 seconds.
Okay, we need to have better schools. The other thing is I implore you to get that CFO, the Chief Sustainability Officer. It's the law and we'll make money from it. But the structural problems of no strategic plan and no goals need to be fixed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Adam.
Good evening. I'm Adam Blummer, District 2. I'm also the former chair of the Charter Review Committee, so sorry for if you have 7 extra things to do. We're partially responsible for that. First of all, I actually like to, I say that jokingly, but also seriously, that I'd like to appreciate the mayor and your staff, and welcome to the new CFO. When we were doing the charter review, we spent a lot of time listening to people in the public about what they wanted from government, regardless of, more on a process level, regardless of how exactly the money was spent, how should the process flow. And we heard a lot from people about making sure that there were more touch points for the public to come earlier in the process. And I know, Mr. Mayor, it creates more work for you, but, starting with a December or a January meeting with various boards, and then this tonight. But I really appreciate you spending the time, and I appreciate the public actually tuning in and coming, because good government only happens. It doesn't happen to people, it happens when people are part of a process. And I'm hoping that over the years we get better and better at this. We have more people who have more say and more perspectives on how our government should operate and how we should spend our money. Your decisions are really tough. While we're talking process, I'll also just remind you that one of the other changes to the charter that was in Article 5, Section 5, subsection E, for those of you who are following the charter and have it next to your bedstand, apparently, is a section called Availability of the Budget and Related Materials, and it basically asks/requires that when you do the budget and when it's given to the City Council, it's also posted in the clearest way possible online. And then when there's a final budget, it also is online, clearly labeled final budget, so the public can follow. If I could make one thought process, it's really hard to figure out what to put in a budget document. Sometimes you put so much it's overwhelming. Sometimes people complain when things are missing. If I were to task the new CFO with with another thing to think about is, we have a group called SIFOC, and we've never really been totally sure what they do, just because it's a new process. I actually think it would be a great, whether it's them or you forming a working group with the finance subcommittee or others, I think it would be a great off-budget cycle conversation to talk about what do we want to have in a budget document posted online. And I know you have experience from other places, you could look at best practices, but we're all better off when we're getting the information we need in a timely way and there's not misunderstandings or mistrust. So thank you all for all of this.
Thank you. That's it? Anybody else? We have no one else on Zoom either. I will thank you all for coming. What? I'm sorry. Yeah.
We did have somebody just raise their hand.
Okay, let's take one more then.
Sean, I've allowed you to talk.
Okay, I'm Sean Champagne in District 2, and I just wanted to urge you to approve the proposed school budget of the Framingham Public Schools School Committee. I think it's very important that we support the schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we close, I just wanted to mention one thing that I neglected to mention while we were going through those charts. We talked about how all the revenue numbers and everything, especially the numbers coming from the state, are estimates. The state goes through a very involved budget process. First, the governor announces her budget recommendation, then it goes to the House of Representatives, and they work on their recommendation, then it goes to the Senate, and invariably the Senate and the House don't agree, and they have to have a conference committee to come up with a final number. And what we have learned since some of these numbers were put together was that the House recommendation on Chapter 70 is more than the governor's recommendation. We don't know where the final number is going to be, but I just wanted to say one thing, that if we approve a budget before the state finalizes their budget, and then they come out with a higher number than what we're carrying in our estimates for Chapter 70, it would be my recommendation that that additional money be appropriated to supplement the whatever school budget was approved by the city council. That's only going to be a recommendation for me. It's totally up to the city council to decide how the money is appropriated and what is appropriated, but that would be my recommendation. And as we mentioned, I think we might have mentioned on one of the slides that that number is about $760,000 additional that the House is recommending over the governor's recommendation. So there's a chance for some additional money to be available at a later date for the school budget. I want to thank everybody for coming, for being so respectful and so helpful in pointing out different ideas and thoughts that you had. We'll take all of these under consideration. Next couple of days is going to be very busy for us drafting a budget. It's not going to be easy, and I don't envy the city council and their deliberations, but we got to work as a team and make this work, and that's what we're going to do. So thank you very much. If you think of anything else that you forgot to say or you want to say at a later date, you can always contact my office, and we'll take anything you say under considerations. Thank you very much. Appreciate your attendance.